Hello and welcome to Software Pulse Building Java Desktop Applications, and I'm John McNeil. And in today's video we're going to take a whirlwind tour of setting up a Java REST API web service, and for that we're going to use Java 11 and we're going to use Glassfish as our web application server. So before we get started, let's take a look at what the end result is going to be able to do. And we're just going to use a web browser because, like I said, it's a simple REST API web service, so we're only going to support calls using the get method. So let's take a look at what we are going to produce. So my Glassfish server is running on my local host. And by default it will run on port 8080, and the endpoint for my web service is people/people/employees, and that will return just a hard-coded John McNeil. Every time you call it, that will return John McNeil. And then we're going to build another endpoint that is people/employees another. I think it's another. Yep, and that's going to return Fred blogs, and again it's hard-coded Fred blogs. Then the third endpoint is going to be in people/employees this, and then / I'll go with Simon because that's up there, and it will take the last part of the URI as the name parameter and return you told me your name was Simon. And if I change Simon to Jane, it will say you told me your name was Jane. And the fourth and final endpoint is going to be people/employees that, but then we're going to use the question mark name equals Jason. So name is the parameter and Jason is the value we're passing with name, and it's going to say the parameter you passed was Jason. So those are the four that we are going to, the four methods that our REST API is going to support. Let's switch to our IDE and take a look at how we go about building this. For this I'm going to use Eclipse as my preferred IDE, and I'm going to create a Maven project, rather unusually for me. So I'm going to start off with new other Maven project. And I will use the default workspace. Next. So now I'm trying to find an archetype, and I think it's called Quick Start, the one I'm looking for, and it's org.apache. Let's skim down to the orgs. org.apache.maven archetypes. There we are, and it's 1.4, so that's the one I want. So I'll select next, and I'm going to give my group ID as uk.co.softwarepulse because that's my domain name, and then .server.rest.api, just so that I can segment things out. The artifact ID I'm just going to call people, and I'm going to give it a version of 1.0, and I'm going to press finish, and that's going to build my Maven project stub for me. So next we are going to modify our POM file that's generated for us. So there it is. Simple things, I will remove that comment there and I will just use my domain name. And we're going to use, I said we were going to use Java 11, so change that 1.7 to 11. The other thing we're going to do is we're not going to be using a web XML file. Sometimes you'll see when you build web services they'll have a web XML file. It's not required anymore, but to prevent the build failing, we just need to say that if you don't find a web XML, don't fail. There. So next we've got dependencies. So I'm going to paste in a dependency here just to make it easier to, rather than you watch me struggle with typing. So we're going to put in a dependency which is got a group ID of Jakarta, Jakarta dot platform, and it's got an artifact ID of Jakarta dot JakartaEE hyphen web hyphen API, and it's version 9.0.0, and the scope is provided. That means we're going to provide the library as part of the deliverable of the web archive file. But I am going to get rid of this JUnit dependency here because I'm not going to be using JUnit in this simple example. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the plugins that I've been given by default from this. Yeah. So there's only one plugin we need, and I'll just put some sort of indentation in here. So we're using the org.apache maven.plugins group ID with the artifact ID of maven-var-plugin, and it is version 3.3.1, and this plugin is going to build our web archive file for us. The other things we're going to do is in the build section, I'm just going to put in here a tag of final name and put the value people. So when I build my web archive file, by default it would have called it use the artifact ID with a hyphen followed by the version number, so I would have ended up with people hyphen 1.0. I want to end up with just people, so I'm giving it a final name of people. And the last thing I want to do is I actually want to say that I think it's packaging. I want to say my to package up not as a jar but as a web archive file. So I just want to put that tag outside, just out. I'm just putting it right at the bottom, after the build is finished and before the project finishes. I'm just saying web archive. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to go Maven update project. And what this is going to do is let me just show you. I think I can. Yeah. So at the moment I've got these jar files in the Maven dependencies. They're the ones that gave me when it built the stub of the project. I've now changed things, so when I do run update project and press OK, it will go out, pull down the libraries that it needs to pull down, and it will remove those that it doesn't need anymore. So we end up with just this JakartaEE web API one. So the next thing to do is to actually go ahead and build our web service, and for that I'm going to go to where the source code was, so source main Java, and there's a package that matches the group ID that we mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to create a new class. I'm going to ignore the class they gave us, and I will call this people application. Can't find the C, application, and it's going to extend application. What if I spelled it right? And we want to pick up the application from the package jakarta.ws.rs.core. As you can see, there are a number of classes that were suggested. That's the one we want, and we'll press finish, and we end up with our class stub here. And all we need to do here is add an @application path, and in there we are going to put /people, and I'm just going to import the @application path, which is from jakarta.ws.rs. There we are. So that's the main entry point of our REST API. and I'll explain where this bit comes in later. So now I'm going to build another class, and we're going to call this one people resources, and just hit finish. And very much like we did earlier, sorry, in the previous class, we're going to do at path and put in employees on it. We'll do an import on the at path. So what we've got at the moment is our web application file is called people. Our REST API entry point is called people. So we're going to end up with people/people, and then /employees will bring us to the people resources class. So that's how we're going to navigate through the various bits. And we're going to do an at get. Oh, I should have done that afterwards maybe. So we're going to define a method. String what is it, show person name. There we are. Show person name, no parameters, and we will return just my name, John McNeil. I'm going to put 3 dots after it just so that we can spot that it's changed since what I may have shown you earlier. I just need to import the at get. So anytime we do an at get request for people/people/employees, it will come here and then it will look for a get, and by default it's going to return this method. If you don't pass any other information, that's the one you're going to get. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it in there. And we're going to call this one show another person, and this one was Fred Blogs misspelt. That's quite good. We'll spot that, the misspelling of Fred Blogs. But I'm also going to put next to the at get, I'm going to put an at, or I'm going to put an at path. And here I'm going to put another, also misspelled. There we are, another. So now if you make a get request and you put people/people/employees/another, this is the method that is going to be called here. And now we're going to do show this person. I need that path. And what we're going to do here is we are going to use this / open the curly brackets, name, close the curly brackets. So what we're saying is that is the parameter for that part of the URI. And then we can use in here in the method parameters past the method, we can use at path param, at path param. That's better, at path param. In there we can put in name, because that's the parameter we're using, and then we can do string some name, and I'll just import that path param. And so here we will return, you told me your name was some name. So whatever we put in at the end of the this, as we saw in the demonstration at the beginning, will be reflected in the message coming back. And then finally, the last thing we were going to do was actually have a traditional parameter passed. So this time we're going to use the that URL. We're not going to have a parameter on the end, so we'll get rid of that. Change this to show that person name, and we're not using a path, we're going to use an @query param, and I'll import that as well. And the parameter you passed was that. Yes, okay. So there's our 4 REST API endpoints built. So there really isn't a lot of code just to build a simple API. So I'm trying to think about whether I've forgotten anything now. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to I'll do run the Maven with a clean command just to clean everything up, and then I'm going to do a run as install, which will do a build and install for me, assuming everything works correctly. No, let me do another clean. Let's get rid of everything. I knew I'd forget something. So what I don't want is I don't want any of this. By default you get a test thing built, and I've deleted the test plugin, so it's failing now. So I'm just going to delete all the test code, and I'm also going to delete this default class that they gave me because I'm not using that either. So I'm just left with the classes I've put in here. So now I'm going to do a run as Maven install. And it's finished, and it's built a target, and in the bottom of the target is a people.webarchive file, and I'm just going to copy that file, and then I'm going to go across to a location to store it for the moment, and then I am going to open up my admin client for my Glassfish server. So the admin client is on port 4848. So the web service is on 8080, but the admin client is on 4848. So if we go there, we get this, and we go to applications, and I already have a people in there for some reason or other, so I'm going to disable that. Because I just demonstrated it to you, that's why I have a people in there, and I'm going to undeploy it. Okay, so to deploy our web service, we press the deploy button, we choose the file, that's the one we put in. It's web application. I choose to pick a context route. Otherwise the rest of the stuff you can just keep as standard. You press OK, and it's there. And if I open it up, what I'm looking for are 4 lines in this table here, which is what I've got, so that looks good. So if we go back to here, if we just call employees, we've got the John McNeil with the 3 dots on the end, so we know this is the new one. Also, if we do another, we get Fred Blogs misspelt with question marks, so we know that's also picking up the new one. We can do this slash I can't think of a name. Emma. You told me your name was Emma, and then we can do that question mark Susan, and the parameter you passed was Susan. So there we go. That's our quick, simple REST API web service built and deployed and tested. Hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, look out for the next one where we'll do some more advanced REST API stuff. But for the time being, Software Pulse, building Java desktop applications, and I'm John McNeil.